What's up, guys? Welcome to the NorCal Sports Report here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And man, do we have a show for you today. The great Johnny Dale of Johnny Dale's Football Academy will be on the show today to talk about the 49ers and their recent game last night against the Detroit Lions. A game in which the Niners, they gave it their all. They went toe-to-toe with the Lions, but unfortunately it wasn't enough as the Niners fall to the Lions 40-34. We got some news on the San Francisco Giants in their free agent pursuit of high-end free agents. They missed out on one, so we're going to talk about that and who they could possibly be going after. And we're going to talk about the Golden State Warriors in their epic season in which they started 12-3 and now are 16-16. It's all bad. None of it's good, but we're here to talk about it. Let's get started. Let's get to the show right now. What's up, you guys? Welcome to the NorCal Sports Report here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And guys, it's great to be back. I took a little break because of Christmas. We got New Year's coming up tonight. It's New Year's Eve. Happy New Year to everybody, early in advance, because obviously I won't be on later on because I'll be celebrating the New Year with my family. Well, we took a break because of the fact that, well, it was Christmas, we had holidays, we were traveling. So I'm glad to be back. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to talk about Bay Area sports, NorCal sports at that, and we're going to have a good show for you today. We're going to talk about Niners and Lions and some news about the San Francisco 49ers, and we're going to have the great Johnny Dale of Johnny Dale's Football Academy on the show, so that will be awesome. We're going to be talking about Golden State Warriors and the San Francisco Giants, but before we do all of that, make sure that you check out Planet Jerky, the premium brisket beef jerky. This is the jerky that's on a whole other planet. If you want to place an order for the Planet Jerky premium brisket beef jerky, then go to planetjerky.net, or you can follow them over on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Definitely some good stuff. We're also brought to you by Seal the Deal wax seals from Cecilia B. If you're looking for wax seals for your invitations, go ahead and check out Cecilia B over at Wax Seals. You can follow them on Instagram over at sealthedeal_wax seals, or you can place an order for it over on iesportsradio.com/sealthedeal wax seals. Also, you can follow us over on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, everywhere. All social media accounts, we're there. Facebook, along with all locations you can find your podcast, you will find IE Sports Radio. Definitely check out the NorCal Sports Report. That's this show right here if you want to follow us for any news on NorCal Sports. You can also follow me over at NorCal Sports IE over on X. That is the direct account for this show over on X. And you can follow me personally over at Dre Area Sports. And, of course, you can subscribe to my channel, Dre Area Sports, over on YouTube. Like, share, and subscribe. That is the most important part of all of this. And on top of that, we have a new sponsor. IE Sports has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, the brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey. Where is it? An amazing journey to support mental health. And mental health, it's a real thing, guys. Believe me. I've done fundraiser campaigns for AFSP on my other channels. Mental health is a real thing, and people need to understand that it is important to take into account someone's mental health because it's a huge factor on someone's life. So definitely check that out over at Vital Apparel. You can follow them over on X as well. But before we get to all that, guys, let's break for a message from our sponsor, Planet Jerky, and here we go.
IE Sports Radio fans, This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at @sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
10 minutes past the hour here on the NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And I am joined today by none other than Johnny Dale of Johnny Dale's Football Academy. Johnny, dude, what is going on, man?
Oh, not much. My camera was a little off center there.
There you
I
go.
noticed that when I came in. We're good to go now. Doing all right. I mean, it hasn't been the season that we hoped for. It's been a while since we've been able. I think the last time we did a show together was after the Jets game.
I know. It's been a while.
Boy, are things different than they were after that game.
Seriously, man. Seriously. So let's talk about it, man. We're talking about the San Francisco 49ers. Last night, they went up against the Detroit Lions, who is arguably the number one team in the league, and they lost at a final score of 40-34. Now, this was a game where the Niners really brought it. They brought everything they possibly could. Now, unfortunately, on defense, I didn't think they did a very good job. I know they were playing hard, but some of the defensive alignments I didn't really agree with. I thought they looked kind of weak, but nevertheless, look, we have a lot of injuries. Now, so do the Detroit Lions. But I think for me, the difference is that they have a lot of injuries, but we have injuries to a lot of key players. They lost David Montgomery. He's going to be coming back possibly next week or in the first round of the playoffs. So, they have some injuries, but I think our injuries are more severe than theirs. They still have Penei Sewell. We don't have Trent Williams. So losing Trent Williams is the equivalent of losing Penei Sewell. But regardless, I thought the Niners played pretty hard. Unfortunately, they did lose, and they fall to 6-10. Johnny, what was your take on the game last night?
Well, I think going to your point about injuries, yes, I think you saw that in the sense that you saw they had a relatively healthy offensive side of the ball. Their offensive line has been, mostly intact and has for much of the year and has played really well. They still had their skill position players, their top skill position players like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, and Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs was averaging 6.5 yards a carry last night.
He's so fast.
For all intents and purposes, he is running back 1, and David Montgomery is running back 2. Now, they're kind of 1A, 1B.
Yeah.
But the benefit they have with that is that if one guy goes down, you still have a starting caliber running back that you can lean on. The 49ers lost 3 of those this year, and they were on their 4th guy. If we remember, Elijah Mitchell was number 2 coming into this season and didn't even make it to the season opener. Christian McCaffrey famously only played in 4 games this year. Mm-hmm. Jordan Mason was hobbled after the Seattle week after his shoulder injury, and then it was just injuries after that, ending with the high ankle sprain. And the last play that Brock Purdy got, the stinger in his elbow. I understand exactly what he's feeling. I've experienced that same exact injury, a face mask to the elbow. It is not pleasant. Thankfully, it's not a long-term debilitating injury, but it hurts like crazy when it happens, and you can't feel anything in your hand. Like when it happened to me, from my middle finger to my pinky, I couldn't feel anything for about 2 hours afterwards. Yeah. And there you can't grip, like it's not pleasant. But on that play, Patrick Taylor, your 5th string running back, is in and he's responsible for blitz pickup. And
didn't pick it up.
There's something there. Now again, he's got to scan and work his way over, but Patrick Taylor has blown several key blocking assignments. But when we look at that, we say, okay, I can understand their offense humming because. And being able to overcome the injuries. I can also understand their defense giving up a ton of yards because they have been hobbled by injuries. But if we were really looking at sides of the ball that you could say have been about equally injured, it was pretty much those sides of the ball. Is that the 49ers defense versus their offense? Yes, they've been injured, but they haven't been that injured. They had Talanoa Hufanga was there. Yes, he's playing with the club, but he's there. You have Malik Mustafa, who's supplanted Jair Brown as a starter. Jair Brown was really, really poor this year.
That was really underwhelming.
Fell off a cliff. He was a big part of why the run defense has suffered. Now, he's not the only part. Our defensive tackles have been way too soft. But they were, I'd say, about 80% healthy. And, that very much is what you could say. Maybe the Lions are 90% healthy on offense, but our offense was considerably unhealthy.
Yeah.
And yet they still move the ball. But again, it was against a defense that is considerably unhealthy for the Lions. I think what we did see coming out of this was a very depleted 49ers offense was able to move the ball at will, even almost more at will than the Lions offense was able to move it on our defense.
Yeah.
We had more yards in every way, more passing yards. Now it was not able to run the ball like they were. They just ran the ball over and over and over again. But when you look at that, I really wonder, aside from the 49ers, is this really a Lions team that's going to have a defense to go the distance, even in their conference? When you look at the Vikings, when you look at the Packers, when you look at the Eagles, I don't think this Lions team, for those people who say, injuries are no excuse, are you going to then look at the Lions, who many people have compared Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson to the 49ers and said, they're able to do it. Why can't we do it? Okay, if they fall short, which I would almost be willing to bet a lot on that this year with the way their defense has looked in this at the end of this season, I don't think they're going to be able to go the distance this year with that. Are we then going to turn around and give Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson those same excuses, or do we say no excuse? And so what we've said about this team for the last 3 months, we have to then apply the same sort of criticism that we've given to Kyle Shanahan and to our 49ers. I just wonder about that, because I think there's been so much comparison there, and people saying, well, they're overcoming their injuries. Well, if they can as they go, are we willing to walk that back, or what's going to be our stance on that in comparing these two teams? Because I think if anybody can understand why they wouldn't be able to go the distance this year, the 49ers should, because this has been what the 49ers have had on their plate for years now, They've been consistently more injured than other teams that are in the playoffs. It's just, that's the way it's been, and it's been really frustrating to watch.
Well, the NFL is a game of attrition. Whoever can, avoid injuries the most will go the longest. Now, I think the Lions have a great chance to, go deep in the playoffs. However, I don't know if this defense is strong enough to go against, the powerhouse offenses. I mean, look, we were coming at them with everything we had last night, and we were scoring at will. In fact, one of the things the Niners were always really good at, especially last year and even parts of this year, was time of possession. And he literally just gave up on that, was like, I don't care, as long as we score, that's all I fucking care about. And they were scoring at will, and which I love seeing. Everybody was happy to see it. Everyone was like, wow, where has this offense been? And he was being ultra aggressive. He was using a lot of trick plays. He was using everything. Now, you had a video recently where you talked about how Kyle Shanahan might have to reinvent himself. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you meant by that video?
Well, I was posing the question, and because I've seen that going around, and so I wanted to address that. Okay, does Kyle Shanahan need to reinvent himself this offseason? And what I've seen from, poring over the film all season and last season and the year before and going back to his Atlanta Falcons days, you see, I don't like saying the words like you see an evolution from year to year, because people assume people read into that. That's like a really esoteric phrase, right?
Right.
That unless you have like concrete examples, people kind of fill in the blanks of what that means and have this idea like that there's suddenly new football, like what we call it in passing concepts, right? Which is a certain combination of certain routes, that there's new concepts being put in there. And it's really not that. Like, you look at many of these passing concepts go back to his dad in San Francisco in 1994, and some of them to Mike Holmgren, and some of them back to Bill Walsh in the late 70s when he was with the Browns. Like, a lot of this stuff is still, we're not looking at a bunch of new ways to distribute routes or combinations of routes. We're not looking, like, it's not wholesale, we're going to a whole different system here. That's not what we've ever seen from Kyle Shanahan. That's not what we saw from his dad, and that's not been 30-plus years of their family. The only time that has ever happened was when Mike Shanahan got hired as the 49ers offensive coordinator, and he was brought in, and I had a great conversation with Jesse Sapolo. I had him on my channel a little over a year ago, and I asked him about Mike Shanahan, and he said the thing that impressed him the most was that Mike came in and he wasn't looking to run the offense that he had ran as previous stops, that he locked himself in the 49ers film room and watched every single install from Bill Walsh and Mike Holmgren for 10 years with the playbooks, and went through and learned the language, learned the passing concepts, learned the formations, learned the reads and the progressions and everything, and then absorbed that in and started to then make his own little tweaks to it, and then presented his own offense off that. But he didn't come in and say, I'm going to run my offense. It was a completely different. But from then, it's been very much a lot of the same ideas. And it just is little evolutions. And so what do we mean? Like, some routes, they will add in that it's going to be a coverage adjustment route now, because certain ways the defense are playing now against this coverage, where it used to be, now where it would be maybe a stop go route, it's going to turn into a deep out route. You'll see things like that. It'll be, are we lining up 1 foot inside the numbers, or are we lining up 3 feet inside the numbers? Are we lining up inside the hash, the far hash that we're lining up on, or are we lining up on the outside of the far hash? It's going to be little differences like that, because you start seeing how teams start playing based upon your alignments. And so these are not wholesale changes. And I think that's what people think. Like, when we see the 49ers often start looking different ways, we start going, oh, where was this last year? And you go, well, some of it is the punch, counter punch, and it's little micro adjustments that trigger different things on the defense that you're playing against. And that's what we're going to see. I don't see wholesale changes and approaches. The biggest change that I saw coming into this season was that we had taken a lot of what were our traditional play action passing plays. Like, for example, we'll have a deep corner route paired with a deep over route. We run that play a lot. A lot of times you would always see that off of play action. And what we did is we turned that into a 7-step drop without play action. And the biggest reason you did that, and you say, well, play action has been your bread and butter. Why would you stop doing that? But you run the same play that's based upon this vertical movement of the underneath coverage reacting to your play action. Like, that makes that play like not make as much sense, right? Well, when you have Christian McCaffrey, who you are noticing every time he releases out into the middle and heads to the flat, that he grabs 2 underneath defenders towards his area. Well, now you don't have to ask your quarterback to run a blind play action, because you're saying, well, I'm seeing that same movement that's happening where, running backs or linebackers would react to a run fake. They're now doing that same thing to Christian McCaffrey as a passing threat. So now I can run the same play, but I don't have to ask my quarterback to turn his back to the defense, turn around and make a snap read. I can allow him to see the field the whole way, and it's still going to create the same movement. Like, right? So that was and we saw that through a lot. And this looked like, as people said early in the season, the 49ers looked like they're transitioning to more of a drop back passing team. And that's one of the big reasons why, is because Christian McCaffrey the previous year had shown that as a receiving threat, he created the same vertical movement as a run fake. So now you don't have to ask Purdy to turn his back. And they were trying to do that, but then that gets derailed by bilateral tendinitis
and his
in the legs.
his Achilles. I mean, it's
Right.
absolutely insane. But go
So
ahead.
you spend all OTAs, all mini camp, all training camp expecting to have that, and you change so many of your plays from play action to drop back pass, but they're still the same plays, but that's the tweak I mean. And so suddenly you go into the season and that doesn't work like it was. And you don't want to change everything the way you've practiced all these plays, because you only have 2 hours of on-field work during the week. Like, people don't realize that. There's 2 to 3 hours maybe during the entire week to run plays like on the practice field. And so do you have time to redo all of your timing, to rework all of your plays and say we're suddenly going to run all these now as play action? And especially when you have a rookie right guard who hasn't practiced those as play action plays. Now he's got to figure out his footwork and timing for play action versus drop back, and you're you have a left tackle that's in and out, and they're figuring out that timing. Like, that does affect everybody's timing. It affects everything. So suddenly now you say, well, Christian McCaffrey's going to be back in 5 weeks. Do we change everything and then change back? No, we're just going to roll with it. We're going to ride it out. And then because what you notice is the moment Christian McCaffrey was done for the season, play action came back.
Yeah.
And that's why. And so, like, that's why everyone was like, where was this all year? Well, that's why. Because you would transition that. I think they're going to go into this season and say, okay, we have to insulate ourselves from that again. We're going to stick with these as play action. Yes, I like what the possibilities of making these drop back, but it's going to be play action. And I think he's going to get back to his roots more than you're going to see wholesale reinventing himself. I think it's going to say, let's go back to what really worked 2019, 21, 22. What was our identity? And we'll stick with that.
Yeah, because I mean, even last night, the play action was working really well early on. They were getting a lot of, getting the defense to move in one direction and go the other. So it was really, really paying off. And now that you explained the way you did, it makes a lot more sense why we didn't see it earlier in the season, because they had installed this version of the offense. And instead of saying, hey, we're going to have to go back to what we used to do, they just said, no, let's keep it going because he's going to come back. And then everything kind of just fell off the rails. Let me ask you, last night, we saw Brock Purdy play pretty well. He was 27-35 for 377 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, he did have 2 interceptions, both of which were extremely costly. And both of them were just, the first one in general was just a bad throw. I mean, he threw it high, he sailed it, intercepted. The other one, I thought that Kirby pretty much jumped the route and made a play on that, Kirby Joseph. And so he got that second interception. To me, look, he needs to be able to be aware of where that safety is at. But at the same time, I thought that Kirby Joseph made a really good play on the ball. The first one, though, that was just Purdy just being inaccurate. And I think that when you look at this whole year compared to the previous two, his accuracy hasn't been on point like it was last year. Obviously, he's dealt with injuries this year, which he really didn't deal with injuries all that much last year. When you look at his offensive weapons, we know that last year, was it Kittle, Ayuk, and Debo accounted for 40 touchdowns. And at one point this year, they had accounted for only 2. Now that's kind of gone up because, that was a couple games ago. But it goes to show you how much of a difference this year was to last year in terms of his playmaking ability on offense from his playmakers. The amount of injuries, the holdouts, all of that, it was a microcosm of just a lot of bad things happening at one time. Now, I think that, going into this offseason, they can't let these holdouts linger on. And I think that they felt like, hey, look, it's lingering on, but, once we get him in here, we'll be fine. And it wasn't. I mean, we saw right off the bat, Brandon Ayuk did not look the same as he did last year. He looked like an entirely different person. I mean, there was a play against, I forgot what team it was, where Brock Purdy just threw a lob to him, a dime, and he dropped it. Like, oh, oops. It was just kind of like we saw him drop so many passes this year, and now he's out until probably week 6 of next season, Brandon Ayuk. Yeah. So that was a huge loss. I think George Kittle probably had the best year. Deebo Samuel was in with a number of injuries, and then he put his foot in his mouth when he started to open his mouth. And then the last 2 games, we've seen Deebo Samuel play a lot better. I think injuries have slowed him down this year, and that's why he's looked, not as impressive. But one of the things that I love about your channel, right, is everyone who's watching right now, we have 88 watching right now. The one thing I love about Johnny Dell's breakdowns is that we learned very early on, and something that he pointed out was that the Niners were not executing in terms of running their routes, running their plays with the precise execution like they were last year. And you were able to point out the fact that, Debo or most of the receivers were not running the routes as they should have. And it makes a huge difference in the execution of the offense. And why was that? Why do you think that they had a lack of execution in their offense this season?
Boy, if I had the full answer to that, I would be making a lot of money as a 49ers assistant coach. I mean, I can show the first Brock Purdy pick. I just literally watched it as we're sitting here, and And there's some details here. I'd say it's actually about 50-50 Purdy Pearsall. Watching this pick, this is not as clear cut as like Purdy just overthrew this ball. And so there's some things, if you allow me to share this,
Yeah, go
I
right
can
ahead.
show everybody this. So I sent you the share.
Okay, here we go.
On your end. Okay.
There we go.
So,
And Larry, he's the guy who runs all this. We're all good. Everything's fine. We're not going to get taken down. All right, here we go.
No. I do this all the time on my channel. So what the 49ers are doing here is they're running what's called a drift. So you're going to run a play action fake off the right side, and Pearsall is supposed to run what's called a drift route. It's supposed to be 6 steps and an in-breaker. It's about 10 yards, 6 steps. Sometimes it's 7 steps if the other foot's up, and then it's a work to space. Okay, it's break at 10 yards and work to space is what the coaching point on this is. Now, this has been Ricky Pearsall's problem since he got here, which is he's on the line and he's got to work through press man. So, first thing you do, you don't give up your chest as a receiver. So, let's watch Ricky here at the snap. Oh, dadgummit, it froze on me. Sometimes it does this with Restream, like right when I go to share it, it ends up freezing up with Restream. I don't know why or with PlayStream. I don't know why it does that with PlayStream. It's like I have to open it back up and do this. I was on a roll too.
You were. I mean, Pearsall had a good game. He had 8 catches for 143 yards.
Right.
He looked much more impressive in this game than he did in his previous games. And I think he's had more time to learn the offense and get, a rhythm with Brock Purdy.
Yeah. And so, like, when we say, I have it there to share now, when we say, yes, he had a really good game, but he's still got to learn the nuances of playing the position. So again, you don't give up. Why is this not playing? I don't understand what is happening here. This is like ultimate.
What browser are you using?
Okay, now it's playing.
Now
we're here. Okay. So again, watch Ricky. He's right here. Where he's going to give up his bam, jammed hard.
Yeah.
Okay. This was a route that Ayuk ran all the time. Okay, now understand he's supposed to be 6 steps and in. Okay, we're going to count the steps here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then he breaks. Okay, so he's breaking a step early. Now he's breaking this. He's supposed to work to space. You got an underneath defender. Brock is expecting him to run this more as a post. Yes, I understand the safeties here, but he's in a bail. He's not flat-footed. So this is, again, these guys have not had that much time to work. So Brock is going to throw this ball as if Ricky's coming here. All right, Ricky's going to square this off, and he's going to slow down at the top of the stem. Watch this. So there he sat down. Okay, so Ricky tries to sit this down after Brock throws it, and it's off. Okay, again, he's expecting Ricky to move this way. Ricky came here, and he sat it down for a second, and look at Brock's reaction. Okay, he's throwing his arms out. So that tells you that Brock was expecting Ricky to keep on the move and run more of a post, work to space. Those are the things you always look for on film too. Like, how do guys react? That tells you a lot about what they're expecting. So there's a run fake. He sets, throws, and Brock is just going, "Oh, what are you doing?" That is a quarterback and receiver not being on the same page. Now, Brock probably still needs to put this ball on him, but you're an anticipation thrower. You're throwing before this guy's breaking, and you're expecting him to roll here. But he doesn't. He tries to come back to the ball and settle down a little bit, and that's just, they're not on the same page.
And you're right. He did slow down too. He kind of sat on it and then moved forward, and by then it was already too late. And it something you had talked about is that Brock throws with a lot of anticipation. Is that a detriment to the team, or you think that's something that is a quality, an asset to this team?
Well, and I think that, and that being one of his strengths, I think is a big reason for what we have seen a lot of this year, is that so many of his picks and so many of his struggles I've seen have been he's throwing, expecting a receiver to be in a certain spot, and they have not been there. And then when they are, it's like he's just a little hesitant to pull the trigger, and sometimes he's taking sacks, sometimes they're giving up pressure, sometimes then the ball's coming out late. The Ronnie Bell pick versus Kansas City is a perfect example. Is he's throughout that game, he was constant, like that first half. If you remember back to that game, it was like he was throwing and nobody was home. And people are going, what is wrong with Brock Purdy? He looks terrible, not hitting his guys. The ball's
Which game was
off
this?
the mark. This is the Chiefs game.
Oh, yes, exactly.
Okay, the first half of the Chiefs game.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was watching when I was watching film was so many routes were just off. They were not where they were supposed to be. And this was, Debo, the pneumonia game. Debo's out after the very first bit. This is Ricky Pearsall's first game as a pro. Ronnie Bell was not doing great. Brandon Ayuk is running routes that I haven't seen him run before because he's trying to fill in for Debo because Debo's got pneumonia and he's out. And so routes that many of these guys haven't run or hardly run, they're just not on their landmarks. They're not in the right spots. And it looks horrible in that first half. And the game's getting tight. And suddenly Brock is not trusting his receivers to be in the spot that they're supposed to be. He then starts trying to guess where he thinks they will be. And that's what happened on the Ronnie Bell pick. He throws it where he thinks Ronnie Bell is going to go because he doesn't trust that Ronnie's going to be where he's supposed to be. That's on Brock. Okay, you've got to keep throwing to your spots, and if your guy isn't there, that's on the wide receiver coach, that's on your head coach to make sure that they get into their spot. But Brock so much has been trying to make up for some of these lack of executions, and he starts pressing, and he starts putting the ball in harm's way, and he starts not trusting his receivers, not trusting the offensive line, and the whole thing really starts to look disjointed. That's what you started to see. But this is reasons why. You see things like this happen and you go, and that's why. And that's why the next drive, he rips that ball and he's just trying to make a play, even though they had a good disguise in coverage, doesn't really have time to check the deep safety and make sure that the coverage was what it was pre-snap, and doesn't, and he's forcing the ball, and then you have the backbreaker turnover. The second pick was really the backbreaker. That was the one that just put the game out of reach. And you see why. Like, that's where Brock will frustrate me, and I want to see growth, is like, look, what Tom Brady used to do when that would happen is Tom would keep throwing it to the same spots and say, you guys have got to be where you're supposed to be. When Joe Montana would do it, he threw it to the same spots. And Joe Montana would throw sometimes 3 picks in a game. And it was like, I'm going to keep throwing it to that spot that you're supposed to be, and you need to get there. Like, that's, and if we don't win this game, that's on you. Like, I'm going to keep doing what I have to do. And Brock has to learn to take that and say, look, I'm going to keep throwing the spots I'm supposed to throw it at. If you aren't there, or if you can't protect, if you can't do your job, I'm getting a sack. Like, Tom Brady used to do that all the time. We saw him, and he was tremendously healthy, right? Tom would drop back, and that right tackle would fail everything. Tom would just plop to the ground, right? He would duck. He wouldn't take that big hit. He didn't try and salvage that play because his right tackle blew his assignment horribly. He'd get up and he'd look at his right tackle and glare at him, and the guy would be like, yeah, my bad, man. And he would then try and pick up his game because he knew if they did that, they would function as an offense. That's what we need to see with this team is, Brock, you don't need to try and be the hero to make up for everybody else not doing their job. Like,
well,
because that's not his strength.
Oh, it's not. And I think maybe that's a bit of pressure he's putting on himself because, one, we got to the Super Bowl last year. We had high aspirations for this season as well. And he has a contract coming up at the end of the year. So I think a lot of pressure was he put on himself in order to find ways to, gain success on the field. Let me ask you, with Brock Purdy's, contract coming up this next offseason, based on how he's played this year, do you think that this is a guy that clearly deserves 50+ million? Or is this more of like, hey, let's start at 35, 40 and see where we're at?
Well, I think that we always get to an interesting place when we start with, has a guy deserve 60 million, 50 million?
Well, based on his play, that is.
Right. And I get where we come from off that. Like, you have to earn your keep, but at the same point, I'm not sure one, I don't think anybody in this world deserves $60 million. So that's where I start out with.
Yeah, exactly right.
But I think deserves is maybe not the right word. Or is his market value $50+ million? That's the real question we have to ask, is what is his market value? Because if it's just, does a player deserve this? Well, there's a lot of guys who've been paid a whole lot of money that after they signed that contract didn't deserve it. Deshaun Watson would be a great example.
Oh, yeah.
He has not deserved his contract. He didn't
And the
really
fans let
deserve
him
it
know
when
that.
and he didn't really deserve it when he was traded there because he had lots of personal problems.
Yes.
Brock Osweiler did not deserve that contract.
Yeah, I remember Brock. Another Brock.
Right. But remember, Brock Osweiler's contract was the highest paid quarterback in the league when he was signed in free agency. He didn't deserve that contract. He didn't go out and play 2 seasons and prove that he had done a whole lot and lead a team and have all these wins. No, he had a market value as a potential franchise quarterback, and that's why he got paid what he did. We've seen, a guy like Kirk Cousins. Has Kirk Cousins deserved the contract he's gotten? Well, he's been benched. But is his market value as a guy who can perform the hardest position in sports to a certain level, when you can do that, when you can provide those services, then there are a lot of teams that will pay that approach your market value that way. Dak Prescott has not deserved a $62.5 million a year contract. But that's his market value. Because if he was to hit free agency, just like Brock Osweiler did, there's going to be a team that will make him the highest paid quarterback in the league. If Brock were to hit free agency, there would be at least one team that will pay him commensurately as a quarterback because he's been to a Super Bowl. Just the fact that he's been to a Super Bowl will allow that.
Yeah, but Jimmy Garoppolo's been to the Super Bowl, but I guess he did get paid handsomely when he went to the Raiders.
Yeah, when he went to the Raiders, he was getting paid $25 million a year.
That's crazy.
At the time when the highest paid quarterback in the league was like 35. So, again, Jimmy G didn't deserve his contract after only 5 games, but that was his market value because if he hit free agency, somebody was going to pay him $27.5 million a year.
And they had no other options at that point. They made that trade. They had to get that deal done because that's the guy that they were going to go with. We're talking with Johnny Dell of Johnny Dell's Football Academy over on YouTube. You can follow him on X as well. Johnny, if he lands a contract north of $50 million, let's say it's even $60 million. Let's say it's for, 4 or 5 years, 6 years, however many years that they sign him for. Do you think that this will be a good signing for the Niners in terms of they have a quality quarterback that's going to be their franchise quarterback going into the future? Or do you think that Brock Purdy is more of a short-term answer, kind of like a Jimmy Garoppolo until you find another option? Because with Jimmy, we knew that right off the bat, there was going to be limitations. We saw it even in his Super Bowl year. We saw limitations in Jimmy's game.
Yeah.
We know there's limitations in Brock's game when you compare him to the elite quarterbacks in the league now, like a Josh Allen, C.J. Stroud, Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't have the big arm. He doesn't have, the rocket pass that he can throw. He can scramble, yes, but he's also not 6'4", 6'5", like some of these guys. So because of some of those limitations, does that lower his market value because he doesn't have some of those skills that those guys were naturally born with?
Well, again, I think if you look at a quarterback hits the open market that is thrown for 40, 200 yards, over 30 touchdowns, has been to a Super Bowl. That guy hits the free agent market. There's going to be a bidding war with at least 2 or 3 teams. It's not going to be a 10-team bidding war. It's not like it wouldn't be the same bidding war as if Josh Allen hit if Josh Allen hit free agency. You would see a bidding war unlike you've seen anything else, and you would be looking at like $75-80 million a year.
God.
Right? Like
he's really good.
You would,
really
right?
Good.
Like just the physical traits are so enticing that there would be a bidding war unlike you've seen at any point. That's why franchise quarterbacks don't hit the market. And so like in one sense that the quarterback market is actually a little bit capped right now, because the reason teams like the Bills aren't going to pay him that much money is because if it came down to that, then they would exclusive franchise tag him. Like if he was asking for $75 million, they would exclusive franchise tag him, and he wouldn't be able to be traded, and it would take like 4 years to get to that sort of cap hit. So it makes more financial sense to them to make him the highest paid quarterback and not let him get to free agency. But if he did, you would see the quarterback market jump up to 75, 80 million. If the quarterback market opened up now and it was Brock Purdy, it would be the next highest paid contract. Because there would be 2 or 3 teams. Now, again, if Josh Allen hit the free agent market, you'd be looking at 15, 20 teams would be into a bidding war.
Absolutely.
Right? So like when we say market value, we have to understand how the markets are going to work in the NFL and the CBA, because Josh Allen will never hit the free agent market because they can franchise tag him. So he like saying, well, I'm just not going to sign a $60 million because I know if I hit free agency, I'll get 75, 80. They'll say, well, we'll never let that happen. And we will only, you're going to be maxed out on X amount of dollars over the next 3 years that won't get close to the $62 million a year contract we're offering you right now. That's how it kind of works in that. And so there's market factors that all of these things, these guys are paid on market
But do you like
value.
what you see from Brock? Do you think this is a quarterback?
So with Brock, I think what I come back to is I say, okay, Josh Allen can do a lot of great things.
Right.
Does Kyle's offense, with the way it's running, and what I've seen, even going back to the Matt Ryan years, what am I seeing that Brock can't do that Kyle's offense at some point was able to do with, either RG3 or Kirk Cousins or Matt Ryan or Matt Schaub? What were those offenses able to do? Or even going back to Mike Shanahan with John Elway, what were those offenses able to do that I think they can't do right now with Brock Purdy? And there's not really anything that I'm saying, play wise, like what they design and draw up. There's nothing really there that I see that he can't do. He can make the far hash out throw. We've seen that dozens of times, right? The 12-yard out route from the far hash, that's the throw, the combine throw that they always make every quarterback throw to see, do you have enough arm strength to play quarterback in the NFL? Because if you can't make that throw, defenses will just sit on a lot of other stuff. He can make that throw. Can he make the throw 45 yards down the sideline? We've seen him throw 45 yards down the sideline and hit that throw. Is it on a rope like some other guys? No. But can he complete it? Absolutely. So, we don't have like the 70-yard bomb in our offense. Like, you have to buy a lot of time to let a play develop for that. And that's just not the way our offense is. And Shanahan's talked about, he's like, we aren't throwing 60-yard bombs. Like, that's just not how we run our offense. Like, the ball is out at 5 steps, at 7 steps. Like, that's a maximum of about 35 yards down the field. And so, like, we just don't bomb it out there. So when I look at, like, is there any throw within our offense that Brock can't make? No. Is there any read in our offense that Brock can't make? No. He's brought the second play level to our offense. So I look at Brock and I say, I don't really see anything with our offense that I'm like, that Brock can't run our offense at the way it's run. And our offense has been good enough to be tops near the league for the majority of Shanahan's time here. Not, obviously, this year's a down year. This has not worked out.
But even in parts of this year, our offense was really, really good.
Right. So I'm like, if I look at our offense and I say, what do we need to improve to really take this to the next level? Quarterback's not the position that I'm looking at. Like, when I look at how many missed plays were left on the field, quarterback's not the position that I'm like, yes, if that was different, we would look so much more explosive.
What is the position that you think the Niners need to improve on?
Center and left guard, without a doubt. And by a mile. I mean, we saw a difference last night because Aaron Banks was not in the game. Like, that alone was a big difference. Aaron Banks has, in my opinion, was in a neck-and-neck race with Jake Brendel for being the worst offensive lineman on our team this year.
Yeah, he was really bad this year. He was really bad.
Like, bad in the run game, bad in the pass game. I don't know why. I don't know if they were just hoping he would start to return to form or something. Like somewhere in there, I don't know if there's been a lingering injury issue or something that he's had, but he just has not looked right the entire season. Jake Brendel has not looked good since he's been starting. Like I look at this situation, I go, those things change. This is a completely different team. Because just think about, again, we've talked about the limitations that Jimmy G had. And
we talk about Jake Brendel. I mean, this is him again. There he is, just watching.
And yeah, the watcher. Just think about the limitations that Jimmy G had. Our 2019 offense was as explosive or more explosive than any offense we've had with Brock Purdy. Well, what was the difference through much of that year? We had Weston Richburg as our center. Weston Richburg was a phenomenal center. And that run game was super explosive that year. I mean, and it didn't matter who we had their running back, whether it was Matt Breida, who started the year as a starter and ran for like 500 yards through the first 6 or 7 games, and we had Tevin Coleman getting 4 touchdowns in a game, and then we ended the year with Raheem Mostert just blowing everybody away. Weston Richburg had a lot to do with it. Then he tore his patellar tendon in, I believe it was against the Falcons, if I remember right from that year. He tore his patellar tendon, and the team still did pretty well through, we remember the 2 playoff games, but come the Super Bowl, the offensive line really struggled down the stretch in that Super Bowl, and just, Jimmy overthrew some balls. So people say, well, Brock's underthrew a few. Yeah, but we also watched Jimmy overthrow a number of those in key moments.
Yeah, to Sanders at the fourth quarter.
And
my
so,
God.
But there was some issues there. And so what did they do after they thought they were going to get Weston Richburg back in 2020, right? It was supposed to be like a 6 to 8 week injury recovery, and then it turned out to be one of those rare like 2% chance career enders with his patellar tendon. They didn't have that. They ran the thing. It was Ben Garland, I think, was who it was the next year in 2020. And, then Jimmy got hurt twice with the high ankle sprains, and they said, okay, we're going to go get a different quarterback. And they went out and got Alex Mack as well. And Alex Mack was going to be their starting center, and the offense looked a lot better for a while. And then they thought Alex Mack was going to come back, and he retired. And Jake Brendel's been the de facto since. But when you look at this team with either Alex Mack or Weston Richburg, and they're like, I want to say something like 28-3 with those guys on the field. Like, it's just a ridiculous win percentage when you've had either Weston Richburg or Alex Mack out there. With Jake Brendel, it's not the same. Or, anybody else playing center. So, like, they have got to get that center position, addressed this offseason. They got to get left guard addressed this offseason. Like,
There's been a lot of plays. There's been a lot of plays that I've watched on your channel where you watch Brendel just get completely blown up, and the play gets blown up, especially in the run game.
Yeah.
One of the guys who caught a lot of heat early on was Colton McKivitz. And is he the best at right tackle? No. But, I mean, this was back on December 16th. He only had given up 1 sack, which is pretty crazy. And I think that McKivitz gets a lot of the heat, especially early on this year. It was like, oh, McKivitz. But as the season has gone on, it really has become more about Jake Brendel. So you talk about, the offensive line. You're saying center and right guard, because we know that Aaron Banks is coming up on free agency. Would you try to bring him back, or would you look to replace him with a different option?
I wouldn't waste the money, honestly. Like, he's probably going to hit the open market, and a guy who started the amount of games he has, he's going to go somewhere and make like $7 or $8 million. That's just what the market value is going to be. There's going to be a team, like the Titans, who just got to revamp everything, and they're going to say, okay, let's bring in a starter to try and put some pieces together. Right. And so they're going to go pay Aaron Banks. So I don't think you waste the money on it. I think what you do, first thing you're going to do is re-sign Ben Barch. Ben Barch, in the time, I know it was the Buffalo game, he looked so much better.
And he got hurt.
So much better.
I was like, oh.
And then the Bears game, like, a guy falls, like, he trips over somebody, and then somebody falls on his ankle, and I think broke his ankle, or high ankle sprain, one of the two. and his season was done. And so, like, I think you immediately re-sign Ben Barch to bring in as competition, but you don't settle with that. If John Feliciano wants to try and make another run for it, he's been kind of cryptic on social media about something like that. I say you bring him in again, offer him a vet minimum. Like, you're not going to invest a bunch of resources there and cap space, and you're not going to rely upon him because he was, I think, the plan for center.
I think so.
I really do think that he was the plan for center this year, and that didn't work out. That once Pooney came along, they were like, all right, when Feliciano, we're going to kick him into center. He can play center. And he's a veteran who knows everything in our offense, is able to make all these calls. We're going to plug him in there. I think that was their plan, was to have a three-way competition there for those two spots of center and right guard. I do think you re-sign Spencer Burford because I think you can get him on cheap, and I like him at left guard a lot more than I do right guard.
Yeah.
He played on the left side in college. He looked a lot more comfortable there.
Okay, so as we wrap things up on this segment of the 49ers, let me ask you real quick. Jake Moody, is this a guy? Look, he had the worst game of his fucking life. You even saw John Lynch getting pissed off. He's like, God damn it. So is this a guy that you stick with? Because, obviously he's under team control for another 2 more years at a low rate, or do you move off of him and bring somebody in who has more experience?
Well, so here's, it's the struggle of like, okay, one, they obviously do not trust him.
But how can you? When he kicks his ball, he doesn't know where it's going. He's just like, where's it going? Oh, God, I missed. He missed an extra point. That was topping.
He's got the yips right now. He absolutely does. Now, here's the
kicker for the Lions comes out here and he kicks a fucking 58-yarder like it's butter. Like, all right, got it. I was like, he made it look easy. Like, Jake Moody, it's like a stress fest.
So here's the sticking point with Jake Moody. He's got about $430,000 in prorated signing bonuses dead cap, and his base salary is $1.182 million. So you're only gonna gain about $1 million in salary cap by cutting him. You've invested a 3rd-round pick. You don't have a lot to gain financially by cutting him, but you don't trust him. So you're in this weird point. You cannot trust him. So what you have to do, I expect him to be on the roster and people to freak out about it. But I do expect, but here's what I expect. I expect there to be at least 1 or 2 more kickers brought in, whether it be via free agency or the draft, to compete with him and say, Jake, we are going to have a kickoff every single day. And the first guy who misses 6 field goals is going to lose here, is going to be cut. And we're going to do this every day. And we're going to bring somebody else in every time this happens until you beat out like 20 guys.
This guy, I've seen players take over a game. This guy took over the game in the worst possible way. He missed 2 field goals. He missed an extra point. Then on the onside kick, he launched it into the sidelines. I was like, bro, what are you doing? You didn't even give us a chance. I was just like, oh, my God. He's been a problem all year.
Yeah.
And I get what you're saying, but I just feel like you got to bring in competition and make him compete for this position because it's costing you games. He has literally cost us games last season and this season. Looking at the offense, other than Ayuk coming back, you still have Debo, Pearsall, Jennings. Is there anything on offense you think they need to acquire, or do you think they can run this back with what they got and they have enough talent to kind of keep this going? Or should we go elsewhere? And also, would you bring back Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga?
Yes, I would bring both those guys because I think both of them are going to be lower than what their market value will be a year from now.
What about Charvarius Ward?
No, and
God bless him.
I hate saying that.
Yeah, but I wouldn't either.
Just for financial reasons of the way that the cap has gone around. Look, I can't imagine trying to do anything work-related, play football with the year that he's had. So I don't want to say this is performance-based. I just think where cap management wise, with them investing so much in Diamador Lenore, the ascendancy of Renardo Green, they've got to then continue to get younger at that group. I think what I look at with Jake Moody, okay, is if you just remember a few years ago, we played the Dallas Cowboys and we were laughing at them because their kicker, Brett Maher, had just got the yips and was missing everything in sight. He was cut like the week after they lost to us. Wasn't that in the playoffs? And, you know, it was that year he was terrible. The next year, Brett Maher ended up going and kicking for the Rams and doing pretty well. Like, and then he ended up playing with Dallas again. If I'm remembering these years right, you know, he at one point he was a 94% field goal kicker.
Yeah.
So
I
like,
mean, it happens to kickers.
There's just things where kickers, it's mental. It's a head, something gets in their head. And I think that's what's really going on with Jake Moody. Either he's not trusting his plant foot or something. I don't know. I've been trying to get a hold of some old NFL kickers. They're either they don't have their DMs turned on or they have no social media at all. I had an email address that somebody who was friends with a former 49ers kicker had, and they sent it to me, and I sent him an email, but I don't think he checks it because it was still an AOL.com email.
That's an old one.
And so I couldn't get a hold of him to you know, just say like, can we watch some kicking film here? Because I don't know anything about kicking a football. And you tell me, like, what's the issues here? Is this all mental? Is this a systemic problem with the way Jake Moody's kicking? Like, but at this point, Jake Moody's got the yips, and either you've got to like instill some serious confidence and say, Jake, we are not bringing any competition for you at all, which I don't think is the route they need to go. They need to test him mentally as hard as they can this offseason. And if he breaks, and this is the unfortunate part of the NFL, if he breaks, then be gone with you. You are dead to us, and we will bring in somebody else. I remember they did that to Jose Cortez, right? Jose Cortez, if you remember back, that's a throwback.
Yeah, it's a throwback.
Jose Cortez, he was hitting everything for a long time, and then all of a sudden it was like 1 year down the stretch, he got the yips, couldn't hit even like a 48-yarder. They canned his rear end and moved on. I think he was an XFL kicker, if I remember right, from Jose Cortez. You do that. You pull that with Jake Moody. You're going to say, all right, we're going to bring in the guy from the UFL. If somebody there is making kicks better than you are, you know, and it's not like he's a young
really
guy.
bad.
He's the
It's
same
really
age
bad.
Brock Purdy is. So, like,
I mean, we'll see.
your
I
job
mean,
is
he's
to
got
make
the
kicks.
offseason. He's got next week as well. So we'll see how he kind of pans out. Obviously, there's some bright spots on our defense with Malik Mustafa, with Renardo Green. So you do have some bright spots there. I thought D. Winters looked so much better than Devondre Campbell in this game.
D. Winters, I love him. He just got to stay on the field. I mean,
he gets hurt a lot. Every
oh
time
my
he goes
gosh,
out there, he's
it's
like,
like-
"Oh, I'm hurt. Oh, I'm hurt." You know, it's like, oh,
for real,
God.
like it's chest injury, ankle injury, head injury, neck injury, shoulder injury, leg injury. Like, it's just something every game. Like, dude cramped up like 3 times.
I saw
in
him
the last
limping
game.
around like, ugh.
Yeah, you know that when that leg locks and he's moving around, you go, oh, there's a cramp.
Well, and Dre Greenlaw, I thought played so well in the game he came back. I think that showed that, like, hey, look, this guy still got it. Obviously, he played so hard that he gassed himself, and he had some injuries he was dealing with too.
Yeah, and I had talked to great content creator. She's on X, Coach Desi. She's a doctor, and we talked about Dre Greenlaw, and she flat out told me, she goes, I don't think he's going to be 100% until January. Probably not until week 1 of the playoffs is when he would be getting close to 100%. So he definitely rushed his way back to get back on the field.
Well, he was trying to help the team, I think,
because the team was in needed that win against LA. So like they would not have pushed him to come back so early if they hadn't lost as many games early in the year. But he like the timeline of what that injury recovery should have been, he was not fully healthy. And so like that's just the result of a guy rushing his way back. I don't think it was like, this is okay, this proves that Dre is now injury prone, which he has missed a lot of time due to injuries himself. But Like, I'm looking at that, I'm saying, I don't think this is a systemic long thing. That's just what happens when a guy tries to rush that back early. There's going to be downstream effects everywhere else.
Yeah,
He just needs more time. It was very much like the Navarro Bowman injury that happened. That late in the season when you have a serious injury
I don't want to think about
to
that
a major
game. That game was
ligament.
horrible. Oh, my God.
That costs you more than that. It's a double whammy because it costs you at the most important time of the year for your season that year, and it costs you that guy the whole next year. And that's essentially what it did. That's why those injuries hurt so bad.
Okay, last question. Nick Sorensen. Do you stick with Nick Sorensen, or do you try and get a Robert Saleh, or you get just another defensive coordinator in here? For me, he's got to go. He has got to go. God bless him. It's just you can't roll with a first-year coordinator and trying to get your team back to the Super Bowl. What do you do with Nick Sorensen? Would you stick with him, or would you go elsewhere?
What I think happened with Nick Sorensen in the first place was that Shanahan had been leaning away from Steve Wilkes for a while. He just didn't mesh with the staff. Remember, Steve Wilkes didn't hire his own staff there. So I believe that there was dysfunction, and that's what we kind of heard from a couple of different people, is that there was dysfunction between Steve Wilkes and the staff. There was dysfunction in that Steve Wilkes wanted to run things his way and didn't want to run the 49ers defense. And we saw that when they would have a break and they would reset, they would look really good, and then they would just progressively get worse each week. And so we're looking at it with, Steve Wilkes. It wasn't a great fit. Was it the wrong move to fire Steve Wilkes? I don't think so. But the problem was that coming off the Super Bowl and just going, this really did not work out. Bless Steve Wilkes, move on. You did that without a plan to replace him, without a solid plan. You thought, well, maybe we could get Jeff Ulbrich over here, but they weren't going to allow a lateral move. And so what it reminds me of is when Norv Turner left in 2006 in April, and there was no solid plan for replacing him, and they promoted Jim Hostler to offensive coordinator.
Oh,
and
why did you say that name? No, he was the worst. That guy was
what
awful.
This reminds me of. That's what this reminds me of.
He had 1 year as a coordinator at Akron. I was like, now he's an NFL offensive coordinator. Like, what? That's the same
he was
as
the quarterback's coach, and they needed
that's
to
like
fill that.
That's
that
like Jeep
position,
Christ.
so
I was like, oh.
They promoted him from within, and that was the plan. And that's what I just feel like the Nick Sorensen thing was, is that you didn't have a solid plan you just knew that this wasn't working, and you didn't have a solid plan there, and you promoted somebody to failure. And that's where I feel bad. Jim Hostler, if you actually look, he's had a successful coaching career after that. He got canned as offensive coordinator, then he went back to college, and he was there, went around different places as quarterbacks coach, and I think wide receivers coach, and offensive coordinator a couple places, and he was back in the NFL as a quarterbacks coach for at a few different stops.
But Nick Sorensen, would you keep him?
But Nick Sorensen, I don't keep him because I think you promoted him to the point of failure. And so, for me, I think now you have two solid options. And you can go into this offseason and say, we have option A and option B, and whatever we got to do to make one of these two happen, we make happen. Option A, Robert Saleh. If I'm Shanahan, I have been texting him and saying, what's up, buddy? Really appreciated you when you were here. Hope, I've got maybe some interesting new shaving cream you should try, to keep things shiny. Just want to chat. Like I would have been doing that since he got fired. Been texting him every single week. Not about a job, just, two buddies chatting and stuff. Because he's a consultant. He's not on somebody's staff. So you can text him all you want. And I would be messaging him and I would be leaning hard. And if you can't get him, you go for Jeff Ulbrich. Like Jeff Ulbrich is going to, because I don't think either one of those guys is going to get a head coaching look for the next 10 years. Just with the way things have gone in New York. And I think Saleh is the more likely to not get another head coaching look for 10 years. So what we see in Kansas City is that Steve Spagnuolo has been there for 13 years.
Yeah, that's what we need. Something like that.
We need that. We just need to stop the revolving door of people, because what that means is that Steve Spagnuolo has been developing their assistant coaching staff on the defensive side for 13 years.
That's crazy.
His assistants know him. He knows his assistants. The the scouting staff knows Steve Spagnuolo and knows what he wants out of players. So it creates a lot of cohesiveness. You need that. You need the scouting department to get input from Robert Saleh for the next 5 years, not from Robert Saleh 1 year, then D'Amico Ryans for 2 years, then Steve Wilkes next year, then Nick Sorensen the next year, because you need to find players that fit what you want to do.
Whoever they get next, they have to pay this person handsomely. I would tell Robert Saleh,
$1 million a year.
Dude, I would tell Robert Saleh, hey, I will pay you as much as a head coach because I want you here for a long time. I don't want you to come here for 1 year and then take off. No, I want you here for the long haul, and I'll pay you handsomely to stay here because it doesn't hit their cap. It doesn't come out of their player salary.
The interesting part there is that you could really upset a lot of you could really upturn the apple cart there because
I don't care. You have to have some stability there.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. Like the bigger thing, one thing I would just wonder is how in the world has Steve Spagnuolo not gotten another head coaching look? Like, I mean, I get things were disastrous.
Maybe he doesn't want to go. Maybe he wants to stay there.
It's a lot of money. I mean, like
what's his name? Eric Bieniemy. He left Kansas City, which I was like, he's like, I just wanted a new challenge. I'm like, what?
Well,
they had both those guys.
He needed to prove that it wasn't Andy Reid that was drawing up all the plays. That's
where is he now? You know, where's he now?
Yeah.
Still,
but anyways, like. There is the interesting conundrum of offsetting language. So, do you bring Robert Saleh in for $3 million a year when for the next 2 years the Jets are going to be paying him $8 million? And when you pay him $3 million, that means that the Jets, all that means is that Robert Saleh is going to make the same amount of money, but the Jets pay less of it. Like that's sometimes what it means. Like, so I mean, that's not really going to be your selling point. The selling point would be, we're going to only give you a 2-year contract right now, so that the moment your offsets expire, we're going to make you the highest paid defensive coordinator.
There you go.
That's how I do it.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Johnny, thank you for coming on here. I appreciate you coming on the show, talking some 49ers. We got to do it again sometime, especially next season. As this season. And
sometime you got to get me on your Star Wars channel. Just say
yes, absolutely. I'll hit you up. We're going to go live this Friday. But we do a stream. We try to do one every week, but as it comes up, I'll let you know. Definitely, man. Definitely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Guys, you're listening to the NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the San Francisco Giants and their failed pursuit of Corbin Burns after the break.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello, sports fans. It's me, your boy Larry B, and I want to walk you through the world of sports. No, not just the mainstream major TV deal type sports, although those are important too. But let me be your guide through your journey of all sports, from college to the pros, the minors, and everything in between. Each week, we are talking sports galore with true diehards just like you from a hardcore fan's perspective that's sure to quench your thirst around leagues you may know all too well and some you may even discover here. That's right, sports fans. If you love sports of all kinds, enjoy hearing amazing sports stories, and respect all sports, because you know how difficult any of them can be to play or compete in, then this is your show. Join me, your boy Larry B, on The Defining Moment each week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and let the sports come to you.
Defining Moment. That's a really good show, man. You guys got to check out Larry B over when he does The Defining Moment. I absolutely love that show. So good. 15 minutes past the hour here on NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And the San Francisco Giants have failed in their pursuit to acquire Corbin Burnes. Earlier in the week, Corbin Burnes signed with the Arizona Diamondbacks, or D-backs, that's what they want to be called now. I call them D-bags because that's what I think of them. But Corbin Burnes signed a 6-year, $210 million deal with the Arizona D-bags. And I'm sorry, this guy also got a 2-year, he can opt out after 2 years. So really what you're getting here is he's going to be there for 2 years. Now, the Diamondbacks were the black horse because I kept thinking if they all of a sudden enter the market and after Corbin Burnes, that was going to change everything. And they did. We kept hearing about the Giants and the Blue Jays, the Giants and the Blue Jays, the Blue Jays and the Giants and the Blue Jays. Then all of a sudden, the Diamondbacks show up and make the deal. Why? Well, there's a few reasons why. One, he lives in Arizona. His family and himself live in Arizona, so now he doesn't have to move. His kids stay where they're at. His wife stays where it's at. He stays right where he lives in Arizona. Spring training is in Arizona. Doesn't have to travel. If he came to San Francisco, the tax rate in San Francisco in California is like 12.5%. In Arizona, it's 2.5. That's huge when we're talking about your overall salary and how much money you're taking in. Now, he took less money. He signed for $210 million. Word has it, the Giants had a contract of upwards of $235 to $255 million. Because when the Giants have to bring in a free agent, they got to overpay him. Because they know we got a higher tax bracket or higher tax rate. It's expensive to live in California. Nobody wants to live in San Francisco for various horrible reasons. So it's harder to draw in the free agents and their families to come live in San Francisco. You're going to have to commute to work because you probably don't want to live in the city with your family. And you know what? Your kids going to school here because the schools in San Francisco suck. Nevertheless, the Giants lose out on Corbin Burnes. And that was a tough loss for the Giants. I was really hoping that they could land Corbin Burnes because I felt like if they get Corbin Burnes, then they can swing that to get Sasaki, who's coming from Japan. And really, this is another guy that's looking for a lot of deferred money, meaning that he wants to go to a competitive team. Is he going to come here now? Probably not, because Corbin Burnes didn't sign here. You could have had a three-headed monster with Webb, Burnes, and Sasaki, and you missed out. So there is word now, which I'm happy to hear this, is that the Giants are now focusing their attention on Pete Alonso, which if we can get Pete Alonso to play first base, that would be fucking phenomenal. Last year, Alonso had 34 home runs, batted .240, had 88 RBIs with 91 runs. This is a guy that alone, selling polar bear hats, merchandise, you'd make your money back tenfold. I really hope that they can make a deal to get Pete Alonso. He is 30 years old, so you're looking at a contract that would probably take him to the year or the age of 35, 36. But this is a proven major league hitter with power that can hit over 30 home runs. And that's something that's been devoid from the Giants for a number of years. Even last year, Matt Chapman had 27. Elliot Ramos had 25. They got to get these guys who can hit over 30 home runs. Getting Willy Adames is going to help, but they need to get another hitter, an everyday player who can contribute to the offense every single day, day in and day out. Pete Alonso, I think, would be a perfect fit for the San Francisco Giants. You figure you got Willie Adames, you got Pete Alonso, you already got Elliot Ramos, you got Jung Ho Lee coming back in center field, you got Bryce Eldridge in the minor leagues, who if he comes up, this guy's another phenom. But the Giants have a lot of work to do because the Giants have the lowest ranked minor league system in Major League Baseball. So Buster Posey's got a lot of work to do. Farhan Zaidi ran this organization into the ground, and now he's going to have to resurrect it back to what it used to be when we're winning 3 championships in 5 years. So the Giants, they got work to do, but getting Willie Adames helped a lot. But they got to get a guy like Pete Alonso. They got to get another big free agent because this team needs help, especially in a division where you're going up against the Dodgers, who continuously get better year after year. They win the World Series, and what do? They go and get Blake Snell. My God, you've only gone up. So that's why when you're in this division, you're looking at the wild card spots. And so that's who you're competing with, is the other wild card teams. Getting a guy like Pete Alonso would be key for the Giants in order to, fight for that wild card spot. He's 6'3", 245 pounds. Guy hit 34 fucking home runs. This is a guy the Giants need in their everyday lineup. And at the same time, they really need more pitching as well. They need another pitcher. They lost Blake Snell. Yeah, you have Robbie Ray. I think he's going to have a good year. He was solid for us when he was healthy last year. But after Logan Webb and Robbie Ray, who do you have? Hayden Birdsong? Tristan Beck? There's a lot of guys, a lot of question marks there. So maybe you go after one of those mid-market guys to kind of bolster up your rotation. I would have loved for them to go after Walker Buehler, but unfortunately he's gone already too. So we'll see what the Giants do as this offseason hot stove continues. But getting Willie Adames on the right track, losing on Corbin Burns, that's going to hurt. But then again, when you're paying a guy a ton of money every year just to play every 5th game or every 5th day, that's a lot of money that you're investing in a guy who only plays once every 5 days. I would love for them to invest that money into a guy like Pete Alonso who would play every single game. Every game. Every game. You're listening to NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel over on YouTube at IE Sports Radio. You can follow me over at X at Dre Area Sports and over at NorCal Sports IE on X. And make sure you subscribe to my channel as well, Dre Area Sports, over on YouTube. On the YouTubes. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to be talking Golden State Warriors basketball here on the NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Notorious Lava.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That gives you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
listening to NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And guys, welcome back to the show. We had Johnny Dale from Johnny Dale's Football Academy on the show early on, and we were talking about the San Francisco 49ers. We had a really good discussion about Brock Purdy, about what's wrong with the Niners offense, and some of the things they need to focus on going into next offseason. So definitely, if you missed that, check that out. I'll be breaking that off into a segment on my channel. And obviously, this whole stream will be available on IE Sports Radio over on YouTube, or if you go to iesportsradio.com, we'll have a full catalog of all the shows, and there you'll be able to find the NorCal Sports Report in case you missed out on any of the episodes. On top of that, make sure you check out IE Sports Radio /shop. There you'll be able to find some apparel from IE Sports Radio, and it's a great way just to help support the channel and the network, so definitely check that out. Check out my website, which is nicotina.net. That's the homepage for all three of my channels on YouTube, one of which, of course, is Dre Area Sports. Memberships are available, so definitely check that out. I have communities available as well for as low as $3. You get updates, sports updates, news updates when it comes to everything. Football, baseball, basketball, anything that has to do with NorCal sports will go through my website over at nicotina.net. And like I said, definitely check out iesportsradio.com /shop to buy some merchandise to help support IE Sports Radio. So guys, our last segment here, we're going to talk about our good old friends, the Golden State Warriors. Now, the Warriors lost last night to the Cavaliers 113-95. I mean, this was a pure ass whooping, and it's really not a surprise because the Warriors are going against the number one offense in the league in the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they demonstrated that last night. Darius Garland, who was an absolute baller, 25 points, 8 assists, 3 rebounds. Donovan Mitchell, 23 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds. I'm sure Jen is loving this right now, host of a Show of the Land. She's probably like, hell yeah. Jared Allen, 12 points, 9 rebounds. Dean Wade, 13 rebounds, 10 points. They were really just having their way with the Warriors, and Ty Jerome, a former Warrior, talking shit the whole game. He contributed with 10 more points off the bench. And the Warriors, they could not score. Their offense was completely anemic. Steph Curry ended the game with only 11 points. Trace Jackson Davis had 16 rebounds and 16 points. He had a great game. But who is your other scorers? You got Dennis Schroeder out there. He only scored 12 points. Andrew Wiggins, 12 points. Draymond, 2. That's normal. But he had 5 assists and 8 rebounds. Jonathan Kuminga, he played 31 minutes, had 10 rebounds and 18 points. Really good game. Moses Moody with 19 as well. But Buddy Hield, 2 points. Where are you at, bro? Where are you at? This team was once a very deep team. But last night, we never even saw Kevon Looney. We never saw Kyle Anderson. Peyton and Pajemski were out, so they were a little shorthanded, and they're going against the best offensive team in the Eastern Conference of all of NBA. So Cleveland wins this game 113-95. They improved to 28-4, while Golden State drops to 16-16. Now this is a big issue because Golden State, okay, they started the year off 12-3. And I was super stoked. I was like, man, this is great. I'm loving this. This is Golden State Warriors basketball. We're back. This is awesome. And now they're 16-16. They're at 500. It's awful. Their offense has been absolutely terrible. Defensively, they played really well last night, but they couldn't score. So if you can't stop the team, there's no way that you're going to win these games. They need to acquire another scorer. I've been saying this since the beginning of the year. If it's not Steph Curry, who's going to be your next man up? At this point, it's going to be Jonathan Kuminga. But they need more scoring. They need a proven scorer. And are they going to be able to get one? I don't know. I don't think so. There's been talk about the Niners. There's been talk about the Warriors going after Zion Williamson. I would be down for that. I think Zion is a phenomenal player. I think he fits our system very well. He distributes the ball. He can bring the ball up the court. But who do you trade? I mean, what do you give up for Zion? Do you give up a Kuminga, a Moses Moody, a Brandon Pajemski? I don't think you do. I think Kuminga's a guy you got to hang on to. Moses Moody had 19 points last night, but a lot of that came after they were already down by 20. The Warriors need to figure things out. They had a closed-door meeting, players only, before the Lakers game on Christmas, and they lost. Almost won that game, but they lost. On top of that, they played against the Suns, and they beat the Suns. Granted, the Suns were down a couple of really good players, but they played really well. But against a team like the Cavaliers, they don't even stand a chance. Now, granted, we won't see the Cavaliers again this season, but the Warriors need to find better chemistry like they had earlier in the season when everybody was fresh and everybody was healthy and they were playing at 100%. But when it comes to Jonathan Kuminga, he's made huge strides lately and has played exceptionally well, while the rest of the team has played like garbage. Even Steph Curry, the ageless Steph Curry, I think is starting to feel the effects of age. And I hate saying it. I really do. Because I love Steph Curry. But man, when you look at the points per game for Jonathan Kuminga, you're talking about 18 points, 34 points, 34 points, 14 points, 26 points. So he's been balling his last 6 games. Steph Curry, on the other hand, not so much. Not so much. Let's pull up his numbers. Because this is the first time I've ever seen Steph Curry begin to slow down. Now, granted, he is 36. Age affects all of us. I feel it every morning. But it's just sad to see him go down the way he's going down. 11 points, 22 points, 38 points. We won that game. 10 points, 31, 2 points. 26, 19, 30, 23. But by his standards, they have not been there. And it's a shame. It really is a shame because he's one of the best players to ever play the game. And to see him struggle, to see him deal with his knee tendonitis that takes him out of games is tough to watch because Steph Curry is such a phenomenal player. There he is right there. But how do you take advantage of the time you have left with Steph Curry? You have to be able to acquire somebody that can score with him. And right now, their offense feels very disjointed. You got Kuminga, who's a slasher, drives the hole kind of guy. Well, Steph's a shooter. And has he lost a step? I don't think so. But I think that his aches and sores are not going away the way they used to. And so the Warriors need to get another playmaker on this team. But the question is, how much do you give up? How much do you give up in your youth to get an established scorer, playmaker that can help this team in the playoffs and help win a championship? It's tough. You know, they tried to go after both Paul George and Lauri Markkanen. You couldn't get Markkanen because you wouldn't give up Pajemski. Now that's kind of bitten you in the ass. Lauri Markkanen scoring at will on a crappy Jazz team, and Pajemski's playing like crap. So they got to figure this out. I feel like a broken record when I talk about the Warriors because all I ever talk about is the fact that they need another scorer, another playmaker that they don't have right now. The Warriors are 16-16. If they don't act quick, this season's going to pass them up real fast. At 500, when you start out 12-3, now you're 10th in the Western Conference. You're not even in the playoffs right now. They've got to turn this around. And it starts with Steph Curry. He's only averaging 22 points a game. This is a perennial 28 points a game kind of guy. Maybe he can't do it at 36. Maybe the Warriors should look to trade Steph Curry if this season continues to go the way it's going. Now, I want Steph Curry to be a Warrior for his entire career. But I think the question has to be asked, do you trade Steph Curry to get a boatload of draft picks and young players to rebuild this franchise? That's a question I think that Mike Dunleavy has to ask himself. Is it time to move on from Steph Curry? Or do you still build around him because he still has gas left in the tank? I think he still does. But whatever they're going to do, they're going to have to do it really, really fast. Guys, that's going to do it for NorCal Sports Report, episode 12. I want to thank Johnny Dale for coming out here. I want to thank Larry B for putting on IE Sports Radio. I want to thank Jen B, one of the best producers in the game. Shout out to Taryn Rodriguez in the chat, Adam Karnick. The Niners season is over. We have one more game left in which Brock Purdy probably not going to play. The Giants need to acquire more talent in order to compete in a competitive National League West even. And the Warriors, again, same boat, need to get a proven number 2 scorer. Guys, make sure you follow me at NorCal Sports IE on X, Dre Area Sports, my personal account on X. Subscribe to my channel, Dre Area Sports, on YouTube. And subscribe to IE Sports Radio on YouTube as well. We provide content. IE Sports Radio provides content almost every single day, multiple times a day. Subscribe to the channel. Let's get this channel over 1,000. I think we can. We absolutely can. Guys, you're listening to NorCal Sports Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And I will see you guys next week. Peace!